What is going on, guys? Panama, 2018, 2026. Julian, it's a big World Cup. It's a big World Cup for a lot of teams, a lot around the world. I want to keep it in CONCACAF, though. Obviously, kind of like with the intro of it. I want to keep it in Panama. I want to keep it with Los Canaleros, El Diablo Rojo, El Marea Rojo, my boys, my family. I got a cousin on that team, Jose Fajardo. Shout out. Love you, brother. But
Cousin.
yeah, my cousin, yeah, long lost brother, yeah. But dude, I honestly, man, we were talking about this a little bit off camera. You know, I look at this team and I look at the vibes and I look at going into this World Cup. Obviously, winning the World Cups out, semifinals, quarterfinals, even a round of 16 would be mind-boggling still, But I look at this, and a lot of people and people within Panama, within CONCACAF, even internationally, are saying this is a team that could get third place. They could crack that. If this is a team that really goes in there, and I'm talking about these boys are cracked up and they're ready to F and go, and they're
Took
locked
their
to F in.
PEDs beforehand.
I'm talking about, dude, they're shooting up before
Yeah,
the
they're
game.
doing it now. They're doing.
They're they're doing it now. But this is a team that I look at it and I really break it down. And you look at it and my question to you is, are there more expectations in this 2026 World Cup than there was in that 2018 World Cup for Panama?
Yes, I think there's definitely more expectations within CONCACAF. And I think within the Panamanian fan base, including yourself. I think in 2018, it was the first World Cup ever for you guys. It was a very big achievement, but the team felt very brand new still. Like there was still trying to figure themselves out as a federation. It was kind of like on the upswing, but things were going in the right direction. And I think it was just a good momentum shift. But I do think now, considering the results that Panama's been able to get within CONCACAF and now actually being able to qualify again, considering that CONCACAF has gotten a little bit more competitive, I think there's just going to be more expectations from the Panamanian fan base. Now, I don't know if there's going to be expectations from people outside of that, but I think I agree with you in that sense, coming from your perspective.
Yeah, yeah, and kind of part two that I want to kind of ask you as well is obviously I do agree as well. The expectation level I think is risen. I think even internationally, obviously I agree. Fans aren't expecting this team to win the group or things like that. But from what I've been seeing in a lot of the comments going around within not just CONCACAF, but Comne Bowl and European fans and things like that, is this is not a slouch team. Obviously, I think a lot of people are obviously picking England, Croatia to be the 1-2 punch in this group and even myself, I would see that it's going to take a lot for either Panama or even the Ghanaian national team to be able to catch up to either one of those two. But this is still people are looking at this in the way obviously as a diehard fan for the national team and other people as well. This is not only a World Cup where we want to go look good, like you said, we want to compete, and obviously in that last World Cup, it was a lot of vibes. It was a big vibes tournament. It was, that Tunisia game, we're going to shoot it. We're going to try our best. We're going to fight, and other than that, we're going to pray to God. We're going to pray, we're going to take the cross out and, give it up to God. It feels a lot different. It feels a lot different. That Ghana game is going to be the first game. I think that's going to feel like a World Cup final. I think I'm talking about the kitchen sink needs to be thrown at these guys. You need to
It's
throw
a good first
haymakers.
game.
It's a good first game. Like I said, this is all or out. Even a draw is then going to be it's going to be so much harder. The pressure is going to be mounted to even get out of the group, and it's going to be a lot tougher if it's only a draw. Now, like I said, if it's a win, it's a different case. It opens up a lot of doors. It opens up a lot of possibilities to be able to get out of the group. Then, if we're able to get that win. Now, my second part, I kind of want to lead into, dude, and I want to ask you. And I feel like this question's a little bit more not as obvious as that first one. Obviously, the expectation's a lot higher on Panama. I think nationally, within the team, within the base camp, and within the players. But I also feel there is going to be a difference, and I obviously will say myself, if there's not a difference, Julian, and I'll just keep it real. Say we lose to England again, 7-1, you know, A, we lose to not funny, but
But
if
possible.
we
I'm just
lose
kidding.
to like
I'm just kidding.
Croatia, 3-0, like we lost to Belgium, and then let's say we lose to Ghana 2-1. I personally, and I know, and I'm speaking on Panamanian fans as a whole, that we're going to be pissed off. That's not okay. Not acceptable. That's not all
Yeah.
right. And, and that's the difference within 2018. There was more of a, I don't want to say a sentimental vibe. Obviously Pinto Baloy, shout out, legend forever, scored that goal, when we're down 6-1 to England and everybody's going crazy. Cervezas are all over the field. People are going wild. That's not going to be the same atmosphere this time, my friend. I don't see that at all happening. I don't see if we're getting our ass absolutely beat by Croatia and out of nowhere, Amir Murillo scores a header and we're losing 7-1, everyone's going to be like, let's go. Woo. No, it's a different vibe. It's a different atmosphere. And obviously, like I said, I think there's going to be a lot more of a pressure standpoint within this national team as well. I think there are expectations. I think there is that momentum riding into it, and obviously the vibes are good. People are happy, we're excited, but I do think there is a level of pressure going into this World Cup for the team. Do you feel like that as well or no?
Like the level of pressure per se.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like the level compared to 2018 is a lot higher now than it was
I
then?
would imagine. I mean, if I put myself as a Panamanian, yes, I do think from that perspective the pressure's on a little bit more because now it's a little bit more of an expectation considering what happened in CONCACAF. But I still go back to Panama has so little experience out of CONCACAF. I mean, the most recent was that we had the Uruguay matchup and then Bolivia, with their only win being outside the Confederation, being against a Bolivia. And take that as you will. I think that's a tough ask to ask for a team who hasn't have a lot of pedigree outs like internationally, interconfederationally to do something big versus if you look at a Ghana who's a consistent World Cup uh, team, obviously in England who's fighting for the damn trophy, and a Croatia who's a finalist. I think you're asking a lot from a team that, quite honestly, like CONCACAF isn't as strong. I mean, this is a Panamanian team that struggled against scoring against a Suriname. Can't like I mean, Surinames may not even make the World Cup. You know what I mean? So I that there's a lot of concerns with this Panamanian team. Overall, I think there are going to be more competitive. Here's the way I see it playing out. It's like I do see Panama getting last. I have a hard time picking them getting third. I think it's possible, but I struggle to see that. But I do think the goal differential is not going to be as bad as it was in 2018 because that goal differential was abysmal. I think they'll be able to keep it within single digits. Uh, but like I look at that England game and man, that could be another one where it's like it's possible. Like they could run up the table. It could be really tough because I don't have a lot of faith in Fidel Escobar to hold down Phil Foden like
Oh
that.
no, no, he's not getting a call up. He's not getting the call up. Yeah, we're gonna
No.
keep his ass at home.
But in
Yeah.
general, I think, and another thing that I kind of put in perspective too is you guys live and die by Christian. You live and die by Christensen because the problem with Christensen, and I've always said it, is that Panama could be better if they realize that they're Panama. And the problem is with Christensen,
Well,
he
see,
goes
but
after
that's
he goes
I.
after teams, and I'm like, that's just a recipe for disaster. Like
But see,
you gotta realize who you are. Like
the,
Coco
the,
Carrasquilla, as much as I love the guy, he's not near the level of some of these other players that he's going to be going
yeah,
against in the
but
midfield.
but but my thing is with that type of mentality, Costa Rica 2014 would never have had the World Cup that they
But
had.
they played a certain
20,
way.
2022 Morocco never would have had the World Cup that they
But
had.
they played a certain
I
way. Both,
Yes,
both.
defensively, but also, but the thing is, you have to have a mixture. I agree. Yes, obviously, we can't go guns blazing. Edgardo Farinha, Fidel,
Let me
Tuti,
ask you:
everybody
Do you
before.
think Christensen will actually like? Hey, like, let's be real. Like, this is England and Croatia. Let's try to hold out, get a 1-1 or a 0-0 draw, get a point. Because I've never seen you
I
guys do that. Granted, I've never seen you guys
I
play outside of CONCACAF,
well,
outside of the
w-
two
we
games,
have we
outside
have
of
the
the
United States, that US semifinal in the last CONCACAF Nations League. It was Park the Bus FC, and we won the game 1-0 off of Cecilia Waterman golazo.
yeah.
That thing was insane. So the thing is, the pedigree and the experience and the know of how to mix it up is there. I mean, I've been seeing people, I've even seen English fans, and I've seen a lot of the international world kind of buzzing about this as well. Is obviously by name, this is not a team that stacks up with Ghana, or and obviously not with the Croatia or in England, but this is still a team when you look at it, fundamentals and the way the team gels. This team, I would even go as far as saying, dude, we're almost more cohesive than a Croatia. The amount of people and the amount of depth, obviously, and you said it yourself, Julian. We don't have a lot of young guns on this team. These guys have been playing years together, years, and I don't just mean in club ball, international ball. They know how they play. They know the ins and outs of the system. And Christensen as well. I mean, he's been there since 2020. Now, to answer your question, yes, I I think it could happen, but it depends on that first goal. Like I said, that first game against Ghana is going to be the tell all,
Then
know
you're
it
gonna
all.
have to kind of
That,
go after stuff, like obviously,
that
but
yeah, because it's going to be the way that result hands out is how we're going to see other games go out. If now, I will say, if we beat Ghana, which I know you and many other people out there don't believe, I'm catching a lot of flack for it. A lot of people as well are. I think it's realistic. I don't think it's some unrealistic thing. I think Panama, and I
I
think
don't
we
think
will win
it's
that game.
immensely irrealistic. I mean,
It,
unrealistic, but I do think a
but
draw is
I,
more likely
I
than.
I think a lot of people are looking at the names Antoine Semenyo, oh my God, Muhammad Kudus,
Yeah, but I'm
and
not
they're
even looking at it
like
from your guys'
like
perspective. I mean, from the Ghana side, I'm looking like what Ghana has. I'm just looking at your team. My problem with Panama, and I've said it forever, is the ability to score. And you gotta score against these guys. You can't I really lack confidence when I see a team that took a ball punch from uh, Ismail Diaz in like the 98th minute to get a goal and beat Suriname. Like,
yeah,
and that concerns me. I think defensively, you guys
yeah,
can kind of hold your own. My concern is having Fajardo and Cecilia Waterman up top, those boys trying to
yeah,
score on a Trent Alexander Arnold or or or
yeah, yeah.
like that.
No,
That's
I don't.
what scares me with you
And
guys.
and that's where, like, to like go back to your question, that's the thing. What is the style going to be? Because I'll be real with you, dude. The game could come down. If we're fighting for a draw against Croatia, the game may not come down to, oh my God, Cecilia Waterman can't score. Cecilia Waterman's not trying to score. He's trying to defend his absolute
Oh yeah,
fucking life against Luka Modric or against Kramich and against any of these guys. I could genuinely see, these guys trying to obviously whatever role these players have to play going into the World Cup. There's already talks going on. There's already a lot of things about it. Julian, I know you said we don't have a lot of familiar international ball. Well, going into this World Cup, we're going to South Africa upcoming March. We're going to be running it up doubleheader with those guys.
it's a good
Later
matchup.
in good matchup, we're going to be running it up as well, dude. These are potentials, and if you're a football fanatic, dude, this is the game of your life. Australia, Panama. I mean, dude, if you don't really know
Oh,
ball, now here's
that
the
could
thing:
be a
if you don't,
rough watch.
here's the thing. I disagree. If you are a hipster, how I am, and
Mm.
I'm talking about you are a football nerd, you're a geek. You look at that game and you're sobbing at the mouth. I'm talking about you are dying for this game. This is obviously it's just two totally different styles of ball going at it. I think it's going to be a good one. But like I said, to finish it off, these are going to be important games leading up to it. There's talks about a potential Brazil. There's talks even going on with
That's what you
Argentina as
need.
well.
Yeah,
You know,
you need a powerhouse.
yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree. I agree with that. So the thing is, going into this World Cup, like I said, every guy's position is going to be different. I think the roles have already been being talked about. I don't think they're going to talk about it later. It's being talked about right now. Within the camps right now, the national teams players are obviously talking with Tomas week in, week out. And I feel like there's going to be obviously some talks. My biggest thing as well for Panama, and I will say this is kind of a little bit of a side note from the topic that I know we're talking about is we need to make this World Cup. Obviously, I love Cecilia. Obviously, I love Fajardo. I love Godoy. I love these guys, and they're pillars of the game. They're true pillars of what they've created our football. But now it's really time to give it to a guy like an Azarias Londoño. Give a Kadir Badia White. Get these younger guys. Obviously, I look at like a Rafaita Mosquera who plays at New York Red Bulls. These are guys that have played within the national team, but they haven't gotten all those minutes because we're still giving a lot of these older guys, kind of the old guard, those minutes.
Mhm.
So my biggest thing is going into this World Cup, give these guys those minutes. Let these guys get on that field and let Rafa Mosquera cook up somebody. Let him show something because in 2018, obviously that was a totally different roster, but guys like a Pumo Rodriguez, guys like an Ismael Diaz, guys like an Edgar Yoel Barcenas were able to kick off really their careers from that World Cup and go off and do pretty good things and play well. We see Puma Rodriguez balling out in Liga MX, and he was doing it over in Europe as well. So this has to be the launch board for those guys. And like I said, I love Waterman, I love Fajardo, I love Godoy, I love Manotas and all those guys. And I'm not against calling them up because they've earned this World Cup. They deserve to go as much as well. But I don't want them being the sole focus. And like you kind of even said earlier, like I don't want this to just end up losing 4-5-0 against England and we just started a bunch of 30-year-olds. We didn't learn anything. We don't get anything from that.
Yeah. Um, I did want to go back to your friendly thing. I think those are pretty good friendlies. The Australia one's going to be really interesting because it depends. I guess it almost kind of depends how Australia sees you guys. Because Australia might look at you guys as like, all right, we're going to go after him. But Australia obviously is a very defensive minded team from what we've seen from them recently, especially when they go against
Yeah.
the likes of like Japan and stuff. But Japan's at a different level. So I'm curious at like how they're going to go at you guys. But I do think it is very, very crucial you guys I think getting an African team is really good. I think South Africa can help prepare for like a Ghana type matchup. I would really like to. I hope you guys get that Brazil one. You guys need a powerhouse team so you can get the feel and the understanding of like how we're gonna play this game. Because
Yeah.
because you're right, outside of the USA game, there hasn't been very many games where it's like, all right, let's sit back, let's defend, and then let's try to kill them where we can because that's what we can do. We just don't have the talent to go pound for pound with them. Like we get bar for bar, you can't. So I think a really good matchup against an Argentina, Brazil, or I don't know, maybe somebody in Europe if you can figure it out. I think that's going to be a crucial friendly if you can get one because just to experience that type of pressure from like some of the best players in the world, I think you guys need that. Because who would you say the most talented team that you've faced in the last few years?
Man,
Probably
it,
Uruguay
it
at that time?
if if you look back, let's say from the last World Cup cycle, cutting it off there, so 2023, 24, 25, Uruguay is up there. Obviously, the United States. When we played them back into 23, even a Canada in that 2023,
Mhm.
that was a pretty impressive team with what they were doing in those years with John
Yeah.
Herdman. So obviously, nobody is at the level maybe a Uruguay. You can look at it. And I look at that Uruguay game. I'm glad you brought that up.
Mhm.
That was not a game where we went defensively mindset. I look at the starting 11, and I remember being in that game. Uh, Shout out to mom, got me tickets for that one. That was amazing. But, I look at that and being in Hard Rock, and I remember Edgardo Farinha starting that game. This is a 21-year-old kid who was playing at, I think, Municipal of Guatemala at the time. So, it was very different. Julio Martinez, obviously Coco. Godoy was injured that one. Murillo was still playing. Fajardo, I believe, was starting. I think we had Blackman on the left side. So it was it was weird because that game, and not only with the players that we had, Puma Rodriguez was also up there. We were in the mindset of we're gonna go and we're gonna attack. And you saw from that game, we did. Obviously ended up losing 3-1 and it cost us. But that was a Uruguay team that, like I said, I would put Uruguay kind of a little bit in that similar boat of a Croatia. I don't think they're at that England level, but they're definitely within that tier two and the mid range,
Yeah, I
pushing
would say
tier
they're
three.
closer
They're
to
there.
Croatia. I think Croatia right now is a better team.
Yeah,
But yeah, but if you guys can lock down a like an elite level friendly, I think that's big. I think that'd be
yeah.
really big. But I guess to wrap it, overall, I think that Panama will have a better performance. I think they'll be able to leave their head high knowing that there is an improvement. And I think as much as people want to be excited and be competitive right away, it is a process, at the end of the day. Like it's it's been less than 10 years since you guys made your first World Cup. So it takes decades to be where Japan is. If we look at Japan for an example, like Japan was didn't really start taking stuff seriously since until the 90s, and they're just now seeing the fruits of their labor. So, it takes time, you know what I mean? So I think I think you can't beat down. I think as long as those guys go out there, they compete, they make the games competitive and they're fighting, and it's not just a absolute just like
Yeah.
beat down. I
That-
think that's
yeah.
a you got to leave your head high. I think
Yeah.
as long as you can go out there knowing you left a better performance than you did in 2018, that's the thing. But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
any final wrap
Like I
up?
said,
Yeah.
yeah, like I said earlier, um, losing 6-1. I remember being a kid watching against England. I was in Panama, and people were celebrating in the street, and people were, crying, and it was a beautiful moment. Our first goal ever, and it meant a lot. And obviously, I mean, that's a World Cup champ, in England, and that was a team looking to win the cup again that year. So it's definitely it was a completely different vibe. We were just ecstatic to be there, electric. It was beautiful. I think it's going to be that same vibe in the sense of we're excited and hyped up to be here, but we want to make some noise, and like you said, and kind of like alluding to what I said earlier as well, I just don't want to see the same old, if we're gonna lose, I like you said, heads held up high, but fighting within the spirit, because Panamanian ball's always been known as that, kind of that underdog team that maybe doesn't have the biggest name players. They're not rolling up with all these guys playing all over the world, kind of like an Honduras did in 2010 or like a Costa Rica did in 2014. This is a little bit of a different team, with a lot more guys playing within South America, playing within the MLS and things like that. But I still want these guys to fight. They're a bunch of
Yeah.
dogs. I know that, and anybody watching this podcast knows that as well. These guys are a bunch of dogs. So go in there, have that dog mentality, and just be ready to scrap with whoever. So
Yeah. You want to be able to get out of there and just like give a little clap. Be like, you know what? Good job, boys. You left it
or
out there. Good job,
or
boys.
or or I really want, honestly, dude, like I said, so many other goals, and we could go on this topic for hours. But my biggest two things or three, is one, I want to see young guns play. I want to see more young guys get out there, get exposed. Hopefully, other teams get teams talking about them. Get the interest rolling, things like that. Two, get respect from these teams. Obviously, that's going to be impossible. That'll never fully happen for anybody in CONCACAF. But just be able to end the game, and British fans are saying, "Hey, god damn, dude, like, holy shit, that guy with the afro, yeah, he's legit, man. That guy
Yeah.
could cook." Like,
Yeah.
I don't want it to be like, yeah, these guys suck. They're buns, whatever. And the other third thing, like you said, dude, as well, is to be able to end the game and be like, holy shit, man, y'all went toe to toe. Y'all went toe to toe with these guys. We ended up losing 3-1, 2-1, whatever, but y'all went freaking toe to toe with Jude Bellingham, Harry Kane, Phil Foden, Trent, all these guys. Like you said, that's the most important thing. Let's go fight. Let's be some dogs.
All right. I want to thank you guys who made it to the end of this episode. Please be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, everybody.